Welcome back to Simrite Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this front draped cowl bubu kaftan with puff sleeves. So here you can see the puff sleeves, you can see the drapings at the front, the strips, and it has a combination up and down. So the right fabric for this dress is actually Mikado fabric. I will encourage you to use Mikado fabric for this dress to get the exact effect, but here I use a quality satin fabric. So if you look up and down of this dress, you can see it has two combinations. So I'm trying to tie my waist right now because this dress has a tight waist. It has an inner belt, so you can see how fitted it is at the waist part. Okay, so that's why I need to attach the belt to make it fitted the way it is right there on the video. So the dress is actually beautiful. The strip started from the front. It has puff sleeves. You can see the draping between the two colors going up at the center front. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn more. So I'm making use of two different fabric colors, two yards. I got myself 2 yards of the milk fabric and 2 yards of the pink fabric. So here I'm going to open up the milk fabric right now. So this cream or milk fabric is 2 yards. So I place my 2 yards into 2 equal parts, and I'm going to fold it from the other edge to meet the other edge as well. So doing that, it means I have the fabric folded into 4 parts. So here is my center front area. The folded part, I will use it as the center front, and the other folded edge will be the starting point. So the next thing we are going to do is to take our neck measurement. So the neck width is 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and the neck depth for the back is 2 inches. So I'm going to connect my 2 inches to the 3.5 inches width of my neckline. Then the front neckline depth is 9 inches. So I mark 9 inches at the front neckline, and I come in by 1.5 inches at that point. So I'm going to connect the 1.5 inches to the 3.5 inches neck width to complete the neckline. So after that is done, the next thing I'm going to do right now is to take the measurement of my shoulder, divide by 2, which I got as 8 inches. And my sleeve length, I use 19 inches at this point. So you can use the whole fabric if you want. You can also make your sleeve length 19 inches. So from that point of my sleeve, I'm going to come down by 16 inches. 16 inches is my sleeve opening. So I'm going to connect a straight line at that point. So after connecting the line, the next I'm going to do is to open up the dress. So we'll start the pleating. So we are going to pleat first before we cut the side. So before I start draping, I'm going to make a crease line. I'm using my chalk to make a crease line at the center front. So this crease line is going to guide my drapes. So I'm going to pleat and pleat and pleat, but my pleating is not too in because the desired length I need for this pleat is just 28 inches from the shoulder. It needs to be at 28 inches from the shoulder if you want it to look exactly like what we have on the thumbnail. So I'm securing my pin. You can see how I'm draping and pinning because the pins are going to be there before we stitch. So right here you can see I've pinned at that center front where I have my crease line, and I make sure it is exactly at 28 inches length. Unless you want it higher at 25, you can do that. So I'm taking my measurement by offering 2 inches of the back neckline which we have cut. So I measured and I got exactly 28 inches. So this is 28 inches, and I'm very happy with what I have right here because that is where I want the drape to stop. So the next I'm going to do is to iron the drapings. So you have to take your time to iron your drapings. You can use your steam iron and all that to iron them out. So once I'm done ironing, I'm going to take the measurement of 1.5 inches width from that neckline which we had 1.5 inches. I'm going to take it from the center front because it needs to align to the neckline we cut for the front. So I took 1.5 inches on this side and I'm going to rule a straight line. So this straight line is going to serve as my stitching line. I'm going to stitch on top of that 1.5 inches to hold it down. So I'll also take another 1.5 inches from the center front on the other side and I'll also rule my line. So I'm going to rule a line on the other side as well. Then once we get to the machine, it's going to serve as a guide for us to stitch the pleatings and keep them in place. So here I'm going to sew at the just a little in front, a little bit in front of the line, okay? In the front before the line, just come out a little bit and stitch to hold down the pleatings. So I've stitched at one side and I'm also stitching on the other side as well. So these stitches I have at 1.5 inches from the center front is going to hold down the pleats because we are also going to cut out that space for our strip. So after stitching, this is what I got. I'm taking off the pins because the pins were there when I stitched. So the next thing we are going to do now is to cut out what we got for the neckline. But before we go to the neckline, let's cut or let's join the full length and complete our drafting. So I've placed it on fold and the length I have there is 36 inches. So 36 inches is still remaining for the back, while the front remains 28 inches because we have draped. Remember, we are working with 2 yards. So now I'm going to bring the other fabric right away. The other fabric is also 2 yards. I'm going to place it on fold. So when I place it on fold, I have 1 yard for each. So I'm going to place my tape. But before I do that, I want to fold it into 4 parts, just like we did on the white fabric or the cream fabric before we take our complete measurement. So since the full length of the dress is 36 inches before we draped, I'm going to place my tape at 36 inches and I'm going to measure my full length. So I'll place my tape at 36 inches on that point and I'll measure my full length at 64 inches. My full length is 64 inches. So I'm going to add extra 7 or 6 inches. Just add extra 7 or 6 inches. So if you have an excess at the end of the day, it's better you cut it off than for it to have a jumper, because the drape part when it goes up is not going to be the same length at the front. So I'm now cutting out the excess I have after I've taken my measurement. So this excess, I will use it for the strip. So I've cut out my strip right now from the fabric. Then I'm going to divide the folded edge because we are going to join one part to the front and one part to the back. So I just cut it out as you can see right here. So after cutting out, I'm going to bring back the dress and I'm going to attach from one end to the other. So I'm attaching the front piece first and I'm sewing at 0.5 inch for each of them. So I'll go over to my machine right now. I'm going to stitch from the beginning, right side to right side, till I get to the other side. So you can see I'm done stitching the front. That is also how I stitched the back as well. But I want us to concentrate on the front right now because we want to start taking the actual measurements. So I'm going to place my dress at the center front on fold. So you can see I've folded it. I have it as a full dress now. So at the hem, I'm going to take my hip measurement divided by 4 to add 5 inches more, including your seam allowance and ease. So the down part of the dress is actually big, so I added 5 inches to my hip divided by 4. So what I got at that measurement, I placed it at the joint part and I'm going to put the total. I have 17 inches in total. So what you have on the hem, place it on the join part and rule a straight line at that point. So here I have a straight line, but I didn't get up to that point. I came down by 5 inches and stopped because that is where I want to connect my cowl effect. So from that point, I'm going to connect my cowl effect to the sleeve length of 16 inches. So at the 16 inches, come in by 2 inches. Come in by 2 inches. Then connect a cowl shape. So I'll connect my cowl shape all the way from that point to the 5 inches below the joining line. So make sure you just carve a little cowl shape at that point. So that is how the shape of this dress is going to be at the end of the day. So we are done with the sides. So we are going to cut out what we have right away. So I'm going to cut it out right now. So I'm just trying to make sure I have everything correct before I cut. So I'm going to cut this way, as you can see right here. I'll cut it all the way to the sleeve and then cut out the sleeve part. So this is what we got after cutting. So I'm going to also take away the pins right now because we want to work on the front piece. So the front piece is going to have a strip. So I'm trying to arrange it so we can cut out the space for the strip where we have our drape. So after arranging it, this is what I got. So the next I'm going to do now is to cut out the neckline. So I'll cut out that neckline. But when I got to the 9 inches, I stopped because I need to mark this line at 1.5 inches. I'm going to take it all the way down to the part that I joined. I mean the pink part. So I just mark the 1.5 inches to complete the width where we are going to replace our strip. So after ruling my line, the next I'm going to do now is to cut out the strip. So I'll cut out the space for the strip. I'll cut it all through the draped part. Please don't cut the stitches, okay, because the stitches will hold the drapes in place. So now this is the shoulder line. So I'm going to separate the back and front. We are going to cut out the shoulder line. I already added seam allowance on the neckline when I took 2 inches for the back neck and 9 inches. So I just included the seam allowance because I know I'm going to separate the two parts and then join them back. So make sure you arrange them the way you see me arrange, making sure the sleeves are where they are supposed to be before you cut, so that one is not shorter than the other. So here you can see me taking my time to arrange this before I cut. So after arranging, I'm sure I have this on the shoulder line. Next is to cut out the shoulder line. We are cutting out the shoulder line because we have the strip only at the front. So the strip is not going to run to the back. So you need to separate the back and front. So here I'm separating the back and front, and I'm going to work on the back neckline first. I'm creating a facing for my back neckline. Secure with your pins, place a piece of fabric on fold and cut out the neckline. Next is to shaping your facing, and next is to pin your facing and stitch at 0.5 inch all around. So I'm done stitching and I'm creating my notches. I'll flip my seams to the facing and top stitch, which I've done right now, and I even folded my facing too. So the back is ready. I'll set it aside. Next is to work on the front piece. So I want you to pay attention to this front piece. I'm going to pin the neckline, which was 9 inches. I'm going to secure it with my pin because we are going to cut in through this neckline again at 1.5 inches more. So just cut again another 1.5 inches more because the strip is going to replace this part. That is why we are cutting it out. So just follow what I did here, cut out 1.5 inches. So I marked 1.5 inches and cut inwards. Okay, so once we sew the strip will just replace that part, and it will make the sleeve to match with the back sleeve. So when you are working on it, you understand why I have to do this. So after cutting out the 1.5 inches, next is to take the measurement of the full length of the center front so we can cut our strip. So this is my full length right now. So whatever you have as your full length, just add 3 inches to it for your strip. So I've hasted my strip, and my strip width is 5 inches. So when I place it on fold, I have 2.5 inches for my strip, and I've given it a good press as well. So I'm going to open up the front, and I'm going to sew the strip accordingly. So I'm going to place the strip right side to the right side of the fabric, and I'm going to stitch from the neckline to the hemline of the front dress. So I'll head over to my sewing machine right now, and I'm going to sew this strip length at 1/2 inch. After stitching at 1/2 inch, I'll be left with 2 inches for my strip. So now I'm done stitching, and I gave it a good press. So my strip width now is 2 inches. So I'm going to lay the neckline part. So you can see the neckline part before the drape. I'll lay the two of them together and mark 10 inches. So you lay it together and mark 10 inches or 9 inches, depending on how open you want that part to be. But I use 10 inches. So I just mark 10 inches on both sides right now. Then put them together and secure with my pin. I just put it together at the center front, both of them, and secure with my pin. So after that, I'm going to take the measurement of my slit opening. My slit opening is 37 inches. So I'm going to mark 37 inches on both sides. So once I mark 37 inches, I make sure I also match the joining part so they will be equal. So at the joining part, you are going to overlap it completely and make like a V line. You can see how I placed it. I did not overlap completely, but only at that V line, the joining line, I overlapped. If you look well, you will see how I overlapped it. Okay, then from that joining to where we have our slit opening, I'm going to have a full overlap. You can see I'm overlapping it completely, so I have only one strip showing at that point. So I'm going to secure it to with my pin just at that point of the slit. Next is to go over to the sewing machine and sew the way I pinned, and this is the slit part. So on my machine right now, I'm starting from the neckline, which I pinned at 10 inches, and I'm going to sew the overlap. This is partially overlapped before we get to the joining where the two fabrics colors are. So once you get to the two fabric colors, now stitch a full overlap. So I took it fully overlapped till I get to my slit opening. So you can see how I stitched it right now. So everything looks nice and clean. So after stitching, you can see my slit area. So the next thing we want to do is to sew a belt for our tight waist to this dress. So I'll just go ahead and stitch. My belt width is 4 inches and the length is 40 inches. So I'm done sewing the belt. I'm going to mark 2 inches above my waistline. 2 inches above my waistline. That is what I'm going to use for my belt. Then from the center, I'll mark my waist divided by 4. So my waist divided by 4 is 9.5 inches. So I'm marking it to be sure I have half of my waist in front. So I'm going to stitch my belt at the point I marked right now. So I'm done stitching. You can see the belt is attached. So the next thing we are going to do is to lay the back side to the front side and then stitch the seam line. So the shoulder seam line right now, I'm going to use the facing to wrap it up. So you just go ahead and wrap it up with your facing and stitch at 1/2 inch to the sleeve line. I'll do that on both sides. So this is what we got at the end of the day. So next is to fold in the sleeve for the elastic. So you can just measure 1.5 inches from the point of the sleeve, measure 1.5 inches and mark, and then it will serve as a guide for you to fold in for the elastic. So I just go over to the machine right now, and I'm going to fold in a bit and then stop it at the 1.5 inches. That will serve as my elastic casing. So my casing is ready right now. So I'm going to get my elastic. So I cut my elastic at 10 inches length, 10 inches length. And at that 10 inches length, I'm going to put my safety pin, and I'm going to insert it all the way to the other end as well. So now you can see what we got for the puff sleeve. So it's actually looking fine. So the next thing we are going to do is to sew the sides of this dress. So I'm going to turn it around so we can stitch the sides. So from the sleeve line, I'm going to stitch 1/2 inch, and I make sure I match the both colors at their seam lines. So make sure they are actually at the same lines. One should not be up and down like that. So I'm done stitching, and this is what I got. So I have to make a notch at the size of the stitch to ease that part, the side of the cowl. Make sure you make a notch on it to ease that part. So the next is to hem the down piece of this dress, and we have gradually come to the end of this tutorial. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Please kindly subscribe to Simrite YouTube channel, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.